Hello, everyone. Like Archana and a few other speakers have already said today, I am so excited to be here. I am truly blown away by the work done by the organizers, the volunteers. This is an amazing event, so thank you so much. I'm also really excited that I get to speak about one of my favorite topics, which is around how you lead emerging technology innovation at scale. As Amazon is approaching status as a trillion-dollar company, you might imagine that this is a topic that we spent quite a bit of time thinking about and talking about and trying to learn how to do. And I don't know that we're perfect yet. We're always learning. We are a learning culture company. But what I want to do today is walk you through a couple of the key lessons we have learned over the years. And I'm going to do so using a case study that's very near and dear to my heart, which is around how we invented the Echo and the Alexa voice service. Shout out to the team. So it's probably no secret that the original inspiration for Alexa was the Star Trek computer. So it's a little bit of a dated TV show, but most of you guys have probably caught an episode or two of this TV show where the astronauts are flying through space. If they need an answer to anything, all they have to do is just say computer, and the computer just knows everything, right? So that's a great vision, this idea of ambient, ever-present computing. Now, we wanted to do something a little bit different. What we wanted was to have a voice experience, a voice service that felt completely natural, right? The computer in Star Trek doesn't feel all that natural. And there was just one challenge around that. When we set out on this journey back in 2011, most existing voice experiences did not feel very natural, right? So you guys might have called the bank, the government, some other voice tree, and you get to talk to this very robotic and stiff voice. And so we were very crisp around that's really not what we wanted. We wanted to feel like you were talking to this ever-present friend, advisor, companion, assistant that was always with you. So how do you get started on building that kind of vision? Well, what we do at Amazon is we always start with a press release and an FAQ. So that very first slide I showed, you see that was a copy of the actual doc that we wrote for the first Echo device that we codenamed Doppler. And some people think it's a myth, but we really do start all of our projects by writing this big doc. And it's super important because it helps us really capture a really, really crisp North Star vision. Because especially when you're working on emerging technology, the thing is, the path there is not going to be straight, right? So you have to be really, really crisp and clear on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Where is it you want to go? Because there's probably going to be some detours along the way. And so what I'm going to take you through next are a couple of examples of those journey steps that we took on the path to inventing Alexa. So first, let me talk about the first piece of hardware that we shipped. So this is a render of the first Echo device. And as we were working on this product, there were a number of challenges and constraints that we had to overcome in order to get a product that we wanted to ship. The list is really long, but I'll talk you through three of them. The first one was that we knew from our customer research that music was probably going to be a key use case for this product. And so we also knew with that, it probably had to look a little bit like a speaker. So that was kind of a first constraint on the ID that we had to create. Now, the next and more important constraint, because we're building a voice service, was we had to have a really good far-field microphone experience, right? So what does this mean? It was important that Alexa can actually hear you when you talk to her from across the room, right? And we wanted Alexa to be able to hear you from 15 to 20 feet away. And this turns out to be a pretty hard problem to solve. And one of the things we found out pretty early on was that the speaker drivers actually created noise that interfered with our 7 far-field microphones. And so now our speaker, or our idea of the product, became in this elongated Pringle can design, right? So what you see is going on here is that you have the speaker drivers further down, and you have the microphones up top of the product, right? So that kind of influenced how we could design the ID. And to talk a little bit more about the far-field voice recognition, as said, this was a really, really hard problem to solve. We had a lot of challenges around getting our audio algorithms, our wake word algorithms to work and to actually hear what you were saying, especially at distances. And so one of the detours we took on this journey was exploring what we called a range extender at this time. So it was this idea that I might have this Pringle can speaker in my living room, but then in other rooms or in other corners of the room, I have these little range extender microphones that makes it easier for Alexa to hear me. Seemed like a really great idea. We prototyped it. And then what happened was we realized that introduced like a whole other level of noise, right? Because now you have many more listening sources. And so now you're picking up the TV in the other room and the microwave and the baby crying. And so actually that created more problems than solutions, at least initially. And so we decided that we just had to go back to the original one device concept, and we just had to apply ourselves harder to make that work. But the key lesson I want to bring up related to this range extender concept was that some of these detours you end up going on when you try to launch your emerging product are, they might seem random at the time, but they're usually not wasted. So what happened with those little range extender prototypes is that those actually ended up turning into what's now the Echo Dot device. So as you guys might be familiar with, there's a smaller form factor Echo that you can buy that's been a huge success with our customers. And so we essentially took the range extender technology and we turned those into the Echo Dots. And so not wasted time and effort at all. It became a whole other very successful product line later on, even though it was a detour initially. As said, there were many, many challenges. Inventing the voice service itself was actually infinitely more challenging than inventing the hardware. And so I'll give you a couple of examples of the hard choices and the hard journey steps we had to go through there. One of them was we had to make a decision whether to go for single-shot answers or multi-turn dialogues. And this goes back to this vision we had of Alexa being sort of a very natural voice companion, right? That you really talk to the way that you talk to a human. And so when you have conversations with a human, it'll often flow kind of like this, right? It's like, how's the weather? Well, what city are you talking about? Or I just flew in. Well, where did you come from? And this seems sort of simple, right? Children can do this, but it's really, really difficult to teach a computer to do this. And so this is what we wanted to do, but we also realized it was going to be very difficult for us to do this because in particular, that second question, or that second part of the dialogue, getting that second question accurate is super difficult. And so we had to make a hard trade-off initially to start small and really focus on nailing single-shot answers, right? And so, you know, Achana was talking about this as well. Sometimes you got to go, like, just simplify and pick an easy win that you can get to perform really well and be a great product versus trying to do, like, the huge behemoth big thing all at once. And so what I want to tie that back to is there's certainly a lesson around you want to be really, really stubborn on that North Star vision, but you also want to be really flexible on the details. Like you want to be willing to take those trade-offs, take those compromises to actually get your product out to customers. So let me give you an example of, another example of these voice service challenges. So this is another one that's a great example of where it's infinitely harder to talk to a computer than to a human. So we call this context carryover, but it's basically the notion that you're having a conversation with someone and they remember what you were talking about in your prior question, right? So as you see here, it's like, how far is it to Seattle? Alexa gives me the time. And then when I subsequently ask, are there any good restaurants there? She knows that we're talking with that there means Seattle. Seems super simple, you know, like this, right? Again, children can do this, but it's extremely hard to teach your computer how to do this. So this is actually very, very complicated on the back end. And we had to really make some simplifying assumptions initially to get going. But what I want to illustrate with this example is if you believe in that North Star vision, even though you make those initial trade-offs, at the same time, you want to be super stubborn about that vision, right? You want to keep pushing. And I think especially us as product managers, it's a very data-driven job, but over time you also develop that intuition, right? And sometimes you just know that you're onto something and it's going to be great. And so while you might have to make some trade-offs to get your MVP or MLP out the door, in parallel you should be pushing for that long-term vision in terms of really getting it to where you want it over time. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. So we have come a super long way on this front, and we now have a very advanced framework that we call Alexa Conversations, where Alexa can have conversations with you that are much, much more natural. And so I'm going to show you an example of that.
Alexa, what are the show times for Dark Phoenix on Saturday after 9 p.m.?
Here are the show times for Dark Phoenix on June 8th after 9 p.m.
Get me 2 tickets for 10:35.
Okay. 2 adult tickets for the 10:35 p.m. show of Dark Phoenix on Saturday, June 8th at Regal Cinnabar Palace Station will be $21. Should I book the tickets?
Wait, how long is it?
Dark Phoenix is 1 hour and 52 minutes long.
Actually, what are the show times after 7 p.m.?
Here are the show times for Dark Phoenix on June 8th after 7 p.m.
Get me 2 tickets for the 7:05 show instead.
Okay. 2 adult tickets for the 7:05 p.m. show of Dark Phoenix on Saturday, June 8th at Regal Cinnabar Palace Station will be $21. Should I book the tickets?
Yes, please.
You will receive an email from Adam Tickets with your tickets. Will you be eating out near Regal Cinnabar Palace Station?
Yes, find me a Chinese restaurant.
Here are some Chinese restaurants near Regal Cinnabar Palace Station.
Tell me more about Mott 32.
Here's more information about Mott 32.
That looks good. Get me a table at 6 p.m.
Okay. You'd like a reservation for 2 at Mott 32 at 6 p.m. Should I book it?
Sure.
You will receive an email from Open Table with the details. Would you like a cab to Mott 32?
Yes. Get me an Uber.
Sure. I'll get you an Uber X for 2 from home to Mott 32, which will cost about $8. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Your Uber X will pick you up at 5:42 p.m. Anything else?
Show me the trailer.
Now playing the trailer for Dark Phoenix.
Ladies and gentlemen of NASA, this is Charles Xavier. Help is on the way.
All right, so you guys get the idea, right? You know, so the point here is it takes a really long time to pull something like this off, right? In our case, like more than 7 years. And so you want to make sure what are those micro steps that you can take along the way to validate your vision and to really get going, because otherwise you just never get started. I want to talk about a couple of other key lessons that are really important, especially when you are inventing emerging technology. You guys might be, you might not be familiar with this quote, but you might be familiar with, there's a quote attributed to Henry Ford, where he talks about if he had asked customers what they wanted, he would have invented faster horses, right? So one of the things that's super important to keep in mind is that you're not going to learn everything from data. You're not going to learn everything from what your customers are asking for. And so what you do is you have to make sure that you very early on build a culture and also the tools and framework that allow for rapid experimentation. Because the sooner you and the faster you can start experimenting, the sooner you're going to learn. And so we had some really great surprises with Alexa using this approach as well. So here's one of my favorites, which is the drop-in feature. So drop-in is essentially like an intercom experience. So I can pick up my phone here and use the Alexa app, which is my product. I'm very excited about that. You could also do this from an Echo device. And then I can drop in on my Echo devices at home, or I can drop in on like my mom or my sister, friends and family members, provided they've granted me permission to actually go ahead and do that. And we sort of did this because we thought it was kind of fun, and it turned out it was a huge success with customers. Customers really love this, and it's closely tied to another surprise that we had, which is Alexa and our Echo devices have been hugely popular with a part of the population, like this older woman that you see here, that may not be so good at using other forms of modern technology, right? So for some parts of the population, the fact that you don't have to pick up the phone and the tiny screen or type something has really made a massive difference in their lives. And it's one of those things where, as a product manager, it's of course super gratifying when you have customers who send you all these great pieces of feedback that talk about how Alexa and the Echo device has really changed their families and their aging parents' lives. Another fun surprise that came on through experimentation is a feature we launched earlier this year, which is Alexa Guard. And so what Alexa Guard does is you can tell Alexa when you leave the house, you can tell your Alexa and your Echo devices to listen for sounds like glass breaking, your alarm going off, anything in your home that might indicate trouble. And so if your Alexa devices hear something like that, they will send you a notification on your phone. And so this is a feature that customers are super excited about. We've gotten tons of great feedback. We have tons of great stories where this has really helped customers and improved their lives. Now, this all sounds, super rosy and super great. I think it's super important to highlight that there's a little bit of a dark side too, right, to innovating at scale. So what you have to realize is that as your scale grows of your successes, the scale of your failures are going to grow as well. And this is sort of very easily done on paper. You're like, yeah, sure, fine, we're going to fail, and everyone fails and fails fast and all of that. But it's actually very, very painful in practice. And so you have to really get comfortable with that, and you kind of have to sit with that feeling of discomfort a little bit. Part of my resume is I was part of the team that launched the Fire Phone. Clearly not Amazon's most successful product. We took a write-down of $170 million. It's pretty painful to be like, yeah, I was responsible for that, right? That does not feel great when you come into the office in the morning. But that's just the scale you're gonna have to operate on, right? If you want to do really big things, some of them are going to work, some of them are not going to work, and the ones that don't are going to be equally intense and costly. But we don't want to end on a downer note, so one more very positive note. This is kind of a scaling power tool, and several other people have talked about this today as well. There's an African proverb, you guys might have heard it. It goes something like, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Very, very true for everything we do as well. We try to build tools, frameworks, whatever it takes to really innovate in conjunction with partners as early as possible in the process. This has been a huge factor in our retail business, right? We have marketplace third-party sellers fueling that business, and the same for Alexa, right? Anyone in this audience can go in and build a skill for Alexa. We have the Alexa voice services. We have the Alexa Connect Kit. Those are tools that help you embed Alexa into your hardware products. We just launched the Alexa-enabled Christmas tree using the ACK. I have Mr. ACK PM is here today. Thank you, Sabrina. So huge successes that would have not been possible without these tools that enable our partners. On that note, thank you for listening, and we're excited to hear your questions.